to the Armed Forces Hour winning entry. Kathy, congratulations, well done. You've won some time with me, and yeah, it's been enjoyable time doing a bit of research for you. Frustrating at times, but we'll find that out as we go along. So here we are, your question about the machine gun corps. Now, your chap would have trained here at Belton Park at Grantham in Lincolnshire. It was a huge training ground for the machine gun corps. There are still bits and bobs lying around that you can find, and Time Team actually did an excavation upon the site of Belton House Camp and found all sorts of interesting things. So it may well be worth looking into. Here's a picture of what the huts were like there. It's a composite photograph where you've got the real stuff that you can see now in the background and the huts in the front. As you can note, they've got flowers and vegetables and all sorts growing around them to make them look a little bit more neat and tidy and a little bit more homesome. Here's the YMCA, the Young Men's Christian Association hut. Basically, it was the forerunner of the NAFI, the Navy, Army and Air Force Institute, where you could go and have a cup of tea, have a sticky bun, moan about your non-commissioned officers, your corporals and your sergeants. Somebody will play a tune on the piano. Mostly you could have a game of billiards, which is down in the corner, and a little break from time spent out in the field playing with machine guns. As you can see here, the Vickers machine gun. Water cooled, which is what the tubes are on for. This is the type of gun he would be firing. There is a firer and a loader here, but also there are another 6 men behind them who A, help carry it, and B, carry lots and lots of ammunition. Over on the far right, just in front of the hut, you can see some carts. These are ammunition carts and Vickers carts for carrying it over distance and carrying the information. So, you gave me a lot of information about the chap, and I found out after lots of movements that and changes of name that he actually became part of the 30th Battalion of the Machine Gun Corps. They were sort of started around in March of 1918 and finished in September 1919. They were fairly short-lived, and they were part of the 30th Divisional Troops. For those who don't know, the Machine Gun Corps was formed by royal warrant in 1915, and as such they became a new regiment in the army. Every battalion had their own machine guns, but they were used at battalion level, and there was no coordination of fire because these things could, at a mile, they would be able to take down a breeze block wall on its own. They are phenomenal bits of kit. They were still in use right up through to the end of the 60s into the early 70s, only replaced by the general purpose machine gun, which is based on the German MG42 of World War II, which in turn was based on the German MG34. So interesting bits of kit, heavy to lug round. I've actually had to carry one around. Luckily I've fired one, and as divisional assets they were placed around by divisional level, so that's generals and brigadiers, and people were saying, right, we need to move things here and we need to move around here, and this is where we need to go. So what we've got next, apart from these war diaries, you get appendices to them. Nowadays they're called an annex A, B, C, etc., but they're appendices in those days. This is the appendix for the month of October, which is what we're interested in. And the 30th Battalion of the Machine Gun Corps, we've also got a war diary running up through November of 1918 here. Now I shall pass on the National Archives numbers for these. They are free to download, so you can have a time of your life going through them and having a lot of fun, or not, because unfortunately they're a bit of a pain in the bum. Now, well, these particular ones are, shall we say, usually, but we'll come on to that in a moment. Now, this is where I first thought he was. Hill 63, which is here on your left, and here is the trench system going round here going off towards Plug Street over here, and Mud Corner. These are all named in the war diary, but I don't think he was there at the time. Now, the guns were actually firing over from the other side of the hill, and they were firing enfilading fire, which came over the hill and would rain down upon the enemy. As I said, they could knock down a wall at a mile, and at 400 to 800 yards, they were like a buzzsaw going through. So they are very effective, and lots of them put together, as they would have, with the machine gun corps and these battalions of them, because these battalions were subdivided into companies, and the companies into sections, which we shall come across in a little while. So I thought it was there. And here's a map, and you can see they were on the other side of this hill. Here's the steep slope. The closer these contours are together, the steeper the slope. So it was moving up, and it went up there. There's the Plug Street Wood. So the photograph was looking from this direction, from the mid second square up on the bit where it said boys, and it was looking across and up towards the enemy trenches up there. And the idea was to fire across the hill from left to right to enfilade the enemy trenches, the red ones over here. They actually changed the colours halfway through the war, which didn't really help, but it was supposed to not to help the Germans. So, but what I did find, Escanafels, or however it's pronounced, I don't really like to try and do Belgian names. It's right on the border between French Flanders and Flemish Flanders, so it could be any one of a dozen pronunciations on that. Here we are on the ground. As you can see, Wallonia and Flanders here. Escanafels here, which is mentioned in the things, and here's a picture of Escanafels Church there, and the roads leading in, and this is where they probably were when he got injured. Now, what we've got here is an operational order, or known as into the army as an OPO, operational order, the warning order, wing O, WNGO. So they're the difference, but this is an operational order telling them what they're going to have to do. So you've got A company, C company running around, and B and D companies in reserve if they are needed. Now, I did a talk on map reading a couple of weeks ago. That should still be available to members, and you'll be able to find out what all these weird little things under section 2 with all these map references, U9050, U15, B, S3, U17, you'll be able to find out what they all mean and how to actually read these things. So what we've got here is the 21st Infantry Brigade will do this by extending their front to the left and relieving the 102 Infantry Brigade of the 54th Division. After the readjustment to the northern divisional boundary, will run across these into Escanafels and then to Capon. Tonight the 89th Infantry Brigade will take over. So they're all swapping around here, and as such it makes them a bit of a target. And this is dated the 26th of October. So this, in the grand scheme of things, is where I do believe he was injured, because they would shell any movements even at night, even as quiet as you can be when you're humping goodness knows how many pounds stones of Vickers machine gun and its associated accoutrements. You can't help but make noise. I would believe he had been shelled. Now, as we can see here, we've got an entry for the diary from just before. Unfortunately, this is the only war diary I've seen where it doesn't mention how many killed and injured there were on a day. It's, A and C companies were formed into one group under Major Parker for the defence of the divisional front. The following officers joined the battalion. It's always officers, they always get a mention, but the other ranks, unfortunately, do not. So we have to work on the basis of learned supposition with these. So I would suggest, due to his injuries and due to his problems he had after the war, that he was actually hit by shell fire while was humping parts of the Vickers gun around. We know he hadn't been in theatre for very long, and it's trying to square this circle of where he was and everything else. But you know, we can get a little bit of insight through what we've got here and what has come before. Now, this is the returns for October, end of October 1918. Now, this is part of the 100-day advance. The British Army advanced continuously for 100 days non-stop. It was mobile warfare. It wasn't trench warfare. They'd broken through and they were chasing the Germans back to Germany. What a lot of people don't know is the actual scale of the casualties during this time. And you would have had more chance of being killed in the 100-day advance than you would do on the Somme. Because the Somme casualty percentage was hugely lower than what it is here. When I did my talk, I haven't done this one yet, have I? There's another talk I do with the actual percentage of it, so it's about. So all the way through of October, you've got officers killed 2, ORs, other ranks 6, wounded officers 7, other ranks 84, sick, this is physical ailments as opposed to an injury, officers 5, other ranks 45, otherwise incapacitated, officers 5, other ranks 86, and then they had 18 officers and 144 other ranks as reinforcements. So the strength on October the 1st was 49 officers and 884 other ranks. So this equates about the same as an infantry battalion, about 1,000 chaps in a battalion. And again, all the lists, 19 and 221 incapacitated and taken out of the line. Reinforcements only 144. So the strength on October the 31st, they'd had a net loss of nearly 80, because 48 officers instead of 49 and 807 and against 884 at the beginning of the month. So this was quite a heavy month. Killed is fairly a low number for an entire month in the front line. But you got the 84 other ranks wounded and 45 other ranks sick, taken out the line, and they were what's called struck off strength. If they're struck off strength, they are either taken on strength somewhere else or put on the X or Y list, which means that they are unfit for frontline duties, and they can be replaced by these reinforcements that we get here to fill the gap in the unit. So that's where we're going with that. So this is where I believe he was injured, but it doesn't actually say in the war diary. It's the only one I've seen. Now, this is where I believe he was, which is near this is a place called Busbex, and this is the ancient chateau feudal, Ancien Château Feudal des Seigneurs de Busbeck. So the ancient chateau of the feudal lords of Busbeck. Nice little place, isn't it? I think so. And here we are. Here's another picture of it in more modern times in the snow. Lovely looking place, isn't it? Just the sort of place you'd like to go and have a look round, because, you know, the battalion was there towards the end of the war, October, November of 1918. So it'd been lovely to go and have a look round that. Oh dear. Unfortunately, the French have decided to knock it all down, this ancient chateau, and what they're doing is building this, goodness knows what it is, the Lys River, which Belgium and France connection goes over, and it's some form of warehousing and all sorts. And you can see where the chateau was, There's a chapel there, Notre Dame de Bon Secours, which is still there by the looks of it on this stuff. And Le Manoir de Lis, which is further back at the bottom middle right. But ancien emplacement de château n'est pas château. It all gone. Why? Don't know. Bit bonkers. But there you go. So even in France, they knock old buildings down. So unfortunately, you could go and see this industrial park whereabouts they were at the end of the war, or towards the very end of the war, because it was the last 2 months of the war where he went over. Now, I'm sorry that the Machine Gun Corps didn't see fit to make a detailed war diary, but they probably knew it was coming to an end, and they didn't feel like they were going to do anything much. But unfortunately, they were ordered forward quite often, as you can read in them, in the war diaries and in the annexes. But this is the nearest we can get to an actual site of injury for him and for his further years of kerfuffles. Having seen the pictures, I would suggest perhaps he may have been under Gillies, who was a plastic surgeon during the First World War. His cousin, Archibald Mackindo, yes, it was his cousin, learnt his trade there, and of course we all know about the guinea pigs in World War II and the burnt pilots, but they both learnt their trade in World War One. And looking at your chap, I do believe there is a bit of First World War plastic surgery going on there, which looks like they did quite well. But this is the nearest we're going to get with the records that we have available today, I'm afraid. But we know whereabouts he was at this time, where the battalion was, whereabouts you can go and have a look and get a bit of feel of life on the ground if you can get round this warehouse in facility or whatever it is. So yeah, well done, thank you very much. Any more questions, you can get back to me when you like. Thanks then, bye.